I remember a moment in my life I don't talk about often. I was sitting in my car after a long day of helping everyone. I had stayed late for a friend, agreed to something I didn't want to do, and bit my tongue when I wanted to scream. And when I finally got to my car, I just sat there. Not crying, not yelling, just silent, staring at the steering wheel with this hollow ache in my chest. And then it hit me. I wasn't tired because I was busy. I was tired because I was betraying myself. One polite smile at a time. I was the nice person. The one who always made sure everyone else felt okay, even when I wasn't. But here's what I've learned. Being the nice person isn't the same as being the kind person. And sometimes being nice is just a well-disguised way of disappearing. Before we dive in, I want to say something from the heart. If today's message resonates, please like, comment, and share it forward. Not to grow numbers, but to grow courage. Someone out there needs this more than you know. Most of us grow up carrying the weight of one unspoken rule. Be nice. It starts early, in school, at home, even in how we're praised. You're such a good kid. You're so well behaved. You're always so sweet. And it feels good, because who doesn't want to be liked? Who doesn't want to be seen as lovable, as easy, as safe? But little by little, we begin to equate being nice with being quiet. We learn that our value comes from how agreeable we are, from how much we smile, nod, and say yes, even when we mean no, even when something hurts, even when our hearts are quietly pleading for something different. Niceness becomes our armor, not because we're fake, not because we want to deceive anyone, but because deep down we're afraid that our truth might be too much, that setting a boundary will push people away, that asking for what we need will make us unworthy of love. And so we adapt. We dim. We twist ourselves into the shape of other people's comfort. We become experts at reading the room, smoothing tension, making things easier for others, often at the cost of ourselves. I remember times I said yes with a smile while my stomach knotted in anxiety. I remember friendships where I became the emotional caretaker, the one who always listened, never shared. I remember staying in conversations, relationships, and roles long after I had outgrown them, because walking away felt like betrayal. But here's what no one tells you when they teach you to be nice. Niceness without honesty is self-abandonment. Over the years, I found myself nudged to the wrong extent. Self-imposed biases, it's the art of disappearing in plain sight. You become everyone's favorite person, but you forget how to be your own. You gain approval, but lose clarity. You become dependable, but not understood. And in the quiet moments when no one's around, a question starts to echo in your chest. Who am I when I'm not trying to be who they want? That question is where everything begins, because niceness isn't the problem. It's when niceness becomes a mask, when it's used to hide, to perform, to suppress what's real, that we start to fracture inside. That's when we feel the ache of being surrounded yet unseen, helpful yet unfulfilled, loved but not known. And maybe you've felt that. Maybe you've spent years being easy to love but hard to really connect with, even for yourself. If so, I want you to know something. There's nothing wrong with your heart. If you are sick inside, if you are broken, that's when we feel the ache of being surrounded, yet unseen. And maybe you felt that. Maybe you felt the longing for belonging and for connection. If you are longing for surrendering, setting aside your safety, maybe you felt the longing for support and security. There's nothing wrong with wanting peace or harmony or connection, but if being nice is costing you your truth, your voice, your energy, it's time to stop and ask, what would it mean to be honest instead? There's something we don't often say out loud, because saying it would mean admitting to a deep, uncomfortable truth. There is a cost to being the nice person. And it's not just emotional. It's spiritual, mental, even physical. It shows up in our bodies, in our relationships, in our sleep-deprived nights and emotionally exhausted days. Because here's the thing. Every time you suppress your truth to protect someone else's comfort, you accumulate a hidden cost. A quiet toll that builds over time, whether you're aware of it or not. You tell yourself it's just easier to go along, that it's no big deal, that being the bigger person, the flexible one, the understanding one, is what strong people do. But inside, something tightens, something sinks, and that no big deal becomes one more invisible weight on your chest. You think you're avoiding conflict, but what you're really avoiding is yourself. You silence the no rising in your throat because you're afraid of being seen as difficult. You laugh at jokes that sting because you don't want to kill the vibe. You show up for others again and again while canceling on yourself. And eventually, it adds up to something heavy, resentment. Not loud, angry resentment, but the kind that whispers in the background of your life. The kind that makes you feel drained in conversations where you used to feel connection. The kind that leaves you lying in bed wondering why you're so tired, even though all you did was help. The kind that makes you slowly pull away from the very people you've been trying so hard to please. Here's the bold, slightly uncomfortable truth. People-pleasing is not generosity. It's self-erasure. It doesn't build connection. It builds quiet expectations that eventually turn into bitterness, because somewhere along the way, you start hoping someone will finally see you, finally appreciate you, finally notice that you're always the one making the sacrifice. But often, they don't. Not because they're unkind, but because you've trained them not to look deeper. You've taught them, unintentionally, that you're fine, that you don't mind, that you're low mentality, that your needs can wait. And the hardest part, it feels like your own doing, like you can't even blame them. That's when the ache becomes unbearable, because you realize no one's crossing your boundaries, you just never set them. That's when you sit alone and wonder, why do I feel so invisible when I've given so much of myself? And the answer is simple, but not easy. Because giving yourself away doesn't make you more lovable. It just makes you less you. It's not noble to live on emotional fumes. It's not strong to pretend you're unaffected. It's not love if it comes at the cost of your dignity, your joy, your mental health. Being the nice person might seem like a kindness to others, but if it's built on the foundation of denying your own truth, it's not sustainable. It's a slow leak, draining you in ways that can take years to recognize and even longer to recover from. So I want to tell you this with as much tenderness as I can. If you feel unseen, unheard, exhausted from being the good one, that's not your fault. But it is your responsibility to come home to yourself, to stop paying the price for everyone else's peace. Somewhere along the line, we confused boundaries with rejection. We started believing that saying no makes us cold, that choosing ourselves makes us selfish, that drawing a line in the sand makes us less lovable. But can I tell you the truth? Boundaries are not walls. They are not punishment. They are not a sign that you're cruel or inconsiderate. Boundaries are bridges, not barriers, and they connect us to the kind of relationships where honesty, respect, and mutual care can exist. The absence of boundaries might make things look peaceful on the surface, but underneath, resentment is bubbling, tension is building, and emotional debt is stacking up like unpaid bills. Because here's the thing no one likes to admit. When you're always available, always agreeable, always sacrificing, people stop checking in. They stop asking what you need. And not because they're bad people, but because you've taught them that you don't have needs. And that's when something inside you starts to ache. Not because others are taking too much, but because you've forgotten how to give to yourself. Boundaries are how we come back to ourselves. They are how we honor the truth that we are human too, that we can't keep pouring from an empty cup and calling it love. And yes, it's uncomfortable at first, especially if you've spent your life trying to be the peacemaker, the caregiver, the emotional glue that holds everything together. Saying, I can't do that right now, or that doesn't work for me, or I need space. Those words feel foreign, even frightening. We need to say, you wonder, will they still love me? Will they think I've changed? Will they leave if I stop bending over backwards? But the truth is, the people who truly see you, the people who value you beyond what you do for them, they will stay. They might be surprised at first, but they will adjust. Because the right people don't need you to break yourself in order to belong. Boundaries are how we teach people how to love us in ways that don't hurt. They are how we tell the world, I love you and I love me too. I care about you, but I will no longer abandon myself to keep you comfortable. I want connection, not control, not dependency, not obligation. You deserve relationships that don't require constant performance. You deserve to speak your truth without apologizing. You deserve to be supported, not just needed. And sometimes that means stepping back. Sometimes that means being misunderstood for a little while. But if the price of being understood is self-betrayal, then it's not worth paying anymore. Boundaries might disappoint others, especially those who benefited from your lack of them, but they will bring you back to peace. And not just the temporary kind of peace that comes from avoiding confrontation, but the deep kind. The kind that sits in your bones and reminds you, I am allowed to exist fully. I am allowed to protect my peace. I am allowed to take up space in my own life. There's something powerful that happens when you finally stop living to be liked. When you loosen your grip on perfection, when you stop trying to be the version of yourself that makes everyone else comfortable, and you begin, maybe for the first time, to live as you. And I don't mean the polished, agreeable version. I mean the real you. The version that has opinions, the version that gets tired, the version that sometimes says no with a full stop and no explanation. The version that cries when it's too much, laughs too loud, and takes up space unapologetically. And no apologetically. That version, the whole, untamed, radically honest version, is the one the world desperately needs. Because here's a truth you've probably never been told. You were not put on this earth to be nice. You were put here to be real, to be whole. But wholeness, that's messy. It's not always cute or quiet. It doesn't always fit neatly into the roles people expect from you. Wholeness means feeling your anger. It means grieving what you lost, even when others tell you to move on. It means loving fiercely, setting boundaries clearly, and trusting that your worth isn't tied to how easy you are to handle. For so long, we've been taught that being lovable means being digestible. Simple, smooth, never too much. But I want to say this as clearly as I can. You are allowed to be complex. You are allowed to be layered, loud, soft, bold, uncertain, healing, all at once. You do not have to reduce yourself to be worthy of connection. You don't have to walk on eggshells to be safe in love. You don't have to water yourself down to be invited in. You don't have to hide your intensity, your desires, your full humanity. Because when you start choosing your truth over your image, something sacred happens. You begin to attract people who meet you where you are, not who expect you to shrink into where they feel comfortable. Yes, some people might leave. Some might criticize your growth, call you selfish, dramatic, or difficult. But listen, they're not reacting to your truth. They're reacting to your transformation, to the shift in power when you stop being easy to manipulate, easy to overlook, easy to control. That discomfort, it's not your burden to carry. Let them adjust. Let them misinterpret you for a while if they must, because the ones who are meant for you, the ones who see your light without demanding you dim it, they will find you when you stop hiding behind the mask of being nice. We've spent too long trying to be palatable, Now it's time to be powerful, in our softness, in our honesty, in our refusal to live only halfway. You are not born to perform. You are born to embody, to be fully here, fully human, fully alive. And the more you lean into that, the more you take up space with your voice, your boundaries, your story, the more freedom you begin to taste. Not everyone will clap for your becoming. That's okay. You don't need applause when you have peace. There comes a moment, sometimes quiet, sometimes earth-shaking, when you realize you can't keep living the way you've always lived. Maybe it happens at 2 a.m., lying awake while everyone else sleeps, replaying a conversation where you smiled and nodded but felt invisible inside. Maybe it hits you after yet another gathering where you showed up for everyone else but left feeling completely alone. Or maybe it arrives gently like a whisper, I can't do this anymore. And when that moment comes, when the performance of being the nice person finally feels too heavy to carry, that's not weakness. That's awakening. That's your soul tapping you on the shoulder saying, it's time. Time to stop dimming. Time to stop bending until you break. Time to stop giving love that doesn't include yourself. Because here's the bold, beautiful truth we don't hear enough. You don't owe anyone the version of you that costs you your peace. You are allowed to change. You are allowed to outgrow roles you once wore like a second skin. You are allowed to stop showing up for people who never learned how to show up for you. And more than anything, you are allowed to take your power back. Not the kind of power that dominates or controls. Not the kind of power but the quiet, revolutionary kind of power that says, I will no longer apologize for existing. I will no longer confuse being agreeable with being worthy. I will no longer betray myself just to be accepted. Because real love, the kind that fills you instead of drains you, will never require you to disappear. So if you've been stuck in the loop of people-pleasing, if your self-worth has been tangled in how useful, available, or easy you are, if your heart is tired from being everything for everyone, this is your invitation to come home. Come home to your voice, even if it shakes. Come home to your no, even if it's met with silence. Come home to your truth, even if others don't understand it yet. You don't have to become harsh or bitter to stop being nice. You just have to become honest. You can be kind without being a doormat. You can be loving without being self-sacrificing. You can be generous without draining your soul dry. Because the most authentic love, the most sustainable kind, begins when you love yourself enough to stop abandoning who you are. So let this be your quiet revolution. Let this be the day you stop chasing approval and start embodying truth. Let this be the chapter where you stop asking for permission and start honoring your inner knowing. You don't have to fight to be seen anymore. You just have to stop hiding. And when you do, when you finally take that first deep breath of living in alignment, something profound happens. You don't just feel lighter, you feel free. If you've been the nice person your whole life, I see you. I've been you, and I want you to know this. You don't have to be agreeable to be good. You don't have to apologize for becoming who you were always meant to be. So today, just try this. Say what you mean. Ask for what you need. Let people feel what they feel, and love yourself through the discomfort of being real. Because at the end of the day, the goal isn't to be nice. The goal is to be whole.